Ray Ives, the pen of an underdog, still going here, and really want to focus this next part, realizing that there's the behavior has to change. And so this is still part one. The underdog's behavior needs to change, right? And it was 3:57 landing on a runway. All the fun had come to a screeching. It was stop, right? It was the summer of 23. I was stuck in the mud of life. It was hard to explain, where it's like the emotions, the mental state, I lacked purpose. I was basically desperate and poor. But now there has to be a shift. There was a shift in my attitude. It's like, although these things are true, I also had to understand what I was grateful for. I was grateful for my health, my family, long and solid relationship with friends, Southside culture, a beautiful childhood. And then I started adding up like these small victories, right? Because I knew like I needed momentum, and small victories lead to big wins. What were my wins at the time? My biggest win and one of my best accomplishments was I was able to slam dunk on a 10-foot rim. Cool, right? I was able to slam dunk. Then I was like, okay, I did runway. I modeled in New York City and Milan, okay? And I was in print magazines. I was in newspapers. And I was like, okay, that's a win. That's a big win. What else? I won some street fights. I was like, okay, that's cool, right? And I was a bartender. And I was like, okay, like I'm piecing something together here, right? And I knew like I had a desire to be more. I had to do something to change my life. And so it was time to go back to school. And I knew I had to repair my 1.79 GPA, right? I had to repair my transcripts to then go to the next level. And so here I was back to junior college and repairing these transcripts. I had to find a way that I could still bartend, but I could go back to school full time. But then I also had another job to really give me the opportunity to like sit and study. But I did something that took a lot of humility, and I became an overnight, you ready for this? Overnight security guard, a security guard. This was after I was able to slam dunk. I did runway in Milan. Go from that to being like a security guard was a transition that I had to prepare myself for sure. And the one thing it taught me was things are temporary. The pin on the map is just temporary. The destination is going to move. And that's how I felt. I worked overnight at the Chicago Hilton in the Loop, right on Michigan Avenue, across the street from like Grant Park. And I was there, and I was like, it gave me the opportunity to sit there and overnight. I worked like midnight to 8 a.m. So I would do the midnight to 8 a.m. and I would just read whatever books I had to read, economics, literature, whatever it was to finish the degree. I'd sit there, I'd eat Subway sandwiches, and I'd study. Throughout all of that, and I think the important piece here in the book is to say that there's golden nuggets in here. And my attitude stayed positive, right? It stayed positive because, again, like I was healthy. I wasn't miserable. It was just in comparison to what other people were doing at the age of 23 was far greater, more adventurous. At least that was the perception I had. And here I was, I had a bartending job and I worked an overnight security job while I was finishing college. The point is, the pin on the map is temporary. And I knew that after I got my GPA up above a certain point, I'd be able to transfer to a good university and keep this thing going, right? And I would say this, I finished it all straight A's, right? I finished whatever college courses I had to finish to get to that 2-year mark, straight A's. And that's because I decided to live on a higher standard, right? I decided to play above the rim. And I wanted to share that because there's points in everybody's time in life where you feel stuck, complacent. And I was like, all right, that was me at the time. So what? It happens. Time to move on. And there's a lot of vulnerability in sharing that because, I don't know, whatever stereotypes come with a security guard, I absorb, I accept. And I wasn't like the security guard that like had like, a baton and like a belt. It was a dress code, not a uniform, but still it taught me a lot. It taught me all the lessons. And I remember watching equipment overnight for like big pharmaceutical companies. Big companies would come in, big conferences. It just kept feeding my fire to be better, to live on a higher standard. So again, check out this book, The Pen of an Underdog by Ray Ives. There's a lot of it in there. I'm gonna plug it in right here. It's on Amazon. Check it out. I'm gonna go through this all, but there's a shortcut. Get the book, find it, and then stop consuming, start creating. After this, stop consuming, start creating. Ray Ives, The Pen of an Underdog.